guys, this is Asiya Rafi, modest fashion designer and certified in ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis. Welcome to our second episode of Make My Style Accessible. This is my project where we are educating people about fashion inclusion, adaptive clothing, and more. Today, our guest is Ms. Barbara from US, California. Ms. Barbara is designer and founder of Esprit Creative Adaptive Clothing. She has years of experience both as a previous university profession and as a clothing designer. Our topic today is about development of adaptive clothing and its needs. Let's welcome Ms. Barbara.
Hi, Asya. And anyone else tuning in today, I'd like to thank you, Asya, for having me as a guest on Make My Style Accessible. My name is Barbara Becchio, and I would like to give you a little bit of background how I got started into designing and making my line of adaptive clothing, A Esperante. About 5 years ago, a woman asked me to duplicate a corset that she has to wear every single day of her life since she had polio as a child. When she showed me that undergarment, it was possibly the most ugly thing that I had ever seen as an undergarment. It looked to me more like a straitjacket. So after many fittings and getting the fit completely comfortable for her, which was the most important thing, I wanted to make it look nice as well. So I added lace, I added floral trim to it, and it made it look just like a very nice piece of lingerie. And the client was thrilled. She was so happy. She said this was the first time she'd ever had something so nice to wear as an undergarment corset piece. We went on to make a couple more pieces, and I'm currently working on another piece with her. About the same time, I was also talking with a friend of mine whose daughter had CP, and the daughter was in school, grammar school, and she wanted to be able to dress the same way her classmates were dressing. But it was very difficult for her parents to get her in and out of the in and out of the car and in and out of her wheelchair with all this extra fabric because she liked full skirts, the same that her classmates were wearing. So in conversation, I came up with the idea of making a backless skirt for her so that she could easily be lifted into the wheelchair or into the car with just leggings or running shorts on. And then once she was all seated in the chair, they could put the garment skirt around her and it just fastens with Velcro. So it's like a 3/4 apron where the back is open. So she would be sitting on the very flat pants so she wouldn't get any sores from sitting on a lot of different layers of fabric. She was so happy. I made her numerous skirts before I decided that I would like to do this as a line of clothing for other girls that would love to be able to wear something other than sweatpants or running shorts or leggings. So then my company, A Esperante, was born, and I proceeded to then start, about 6 skirts to start with, and started out at an Abilities Expo, which was great because one of the important things about adaptive clothing is listening to your customer about what they need. You want to fulfill the needs of the customer, of the person with a disability, and also make that garment fashionable for them. So they're not just wearing sweatpants and a big oversized sweatshirt, because everyone likes to wear clothing that is fashionable, that they like, and it makes them feel so much better and more confident. So confidence is very, very important. So I think listening is the most important thing to your design. because people will have all different kinds of ideas about what their needs are. So for my particular line, that's specifically for people in wheelchairs, but I will be expanding that a little, I work with the seated figure. So instead of thinking about someone standing and what shape that takes, I look at the shape of a person seated. So when you're thinking about designing adaptive clothing, you want to look at how do these people spend their lives? What position are they in? What's most comfortable? So I would really strongly suggest people who are interested to do adaptive clothing to have focus group, give questionnaires to people so that you really can zero in on what's necessary. When I did these skirts for the girls, a lot of women were very interested in the skirts too, but they didn't necessarily want an open back. So I looked at the shape of someone seated and designed the skirt in the back to work with that angle. So the backs are totally flat, so they're not sitting on any excess fabric. And also another thing that came up were pockets. People in a wheelchair specifically don't have access to a bag all the time, or they could have a little bag strapped around the front of them, but all of them really like the idea of pockets. So pockets can be hidden in seams. They can be made very visible as if you're using a zipper that is seen. All right, and with maybe a contrasting color in the zipper to the rest of the garment. But all of my skirts for the women have very large pockets because then they can fit personal things in there. It fits a catheter. I made them really big and deep. So I think you want to really look at giving the comfort and the functionality to your garments, and then definitely bringing in the fashion element, because people don't want to look completely different from other able-bodied people. They want to be fashionable. And so comfort is very, very important, and functionality and fashion. Some of other needs that people may have can be maybe in the length of the garment. People who have a colostomy bag want that hidden, but they'll still want to wear something nice. All right, so luckily we have lots of designers who are now coming out and making adaptive clothing, making all kinds of extra little additions to the clothing that will make them more comfortable for people with disabilities. One of the things you can do also to make it more comfortable is the choice of fabric. If you are sticking with softer fabrics, knits are very nice. And if you're going with wovens, use something that has a little bit of spandex in it if it's going to be something a little snugger to the body. Okay, so that there's it's a little more comfortable having that spandex with a little bit of stretch. And then bring the fashion element into it. When I start to design something, I'm thinking of these needs as well, but I also have a huge library of fashion design, different designers, fashion through the ages that I can pull from, fashions from different cultures. And you'll find, looking at that, a lot of the different lines that have been used in history or in other cultural garments work very well for the needs and movement of garments for people with disabilities. And you want to think of their shape. You want to, when I'm doing something for a wheelchair, I did some pants that I'm going to be coming out with, and they're shaped to a seated figure. and there's extra accommodations for at the waistline, so that when you sit, the waistline doesn't come way below your waist, it comes to your waist. The hem as well in the back, that has to be made longer. So in speaking with a particular target group of people with disabilities, will give you a lot of information as to how you can proceed and make these accommodations within the garment design itself. Soft fabrics are nice, any of the soft knits, fleece, polar fleece also is nice for outer garments. It's very soft. But one of the things that I would like to see, and I know we've talked with other designers and we think how great this would be, is if within a store, if you're going shopping in a brick and mortar store, that there is a department for adaptive clothing. All right, I remember, and this doesn't have anything really to do with adaptive clothing, but just how to show how the industry can change, and you just need a little bit of a push. I'm very short, and whenever I would buy clothes, I would always have to alter them. Luckily, I started sewing when I was 6 years old, so I could do that for myself later on. But everything I would be chopping off about 6 inches off the hem and having to shorten sleeves, all these different things, because there were no petite sizes. Finally, they came out with petite sizes that were sold in the stores, but there would be like one little tiny rack. Okay, and now there's a whole department. So I think the same thing can happen with adaptive clothing. We just need to keep pushing and showing that there is a need for this and that people are willing to come into the store, but the store needs to be able to give them a nice selection and also train the people who are working in the store how to best help someone with a disability try these clothes on. All right, you want them to be easy to get in and out of, which would then makes for magnetic zippers, magnetic snaps, magnetic buttons. You can use Velcro, things so that they can help to get themselves dressed, if not dress themselves entirely. It'll make it easier for the caregiver to help them. There are different ways that you can seam clothing together to make the shape easier to put on and more comfortable to wear. Extra long zippers, even zippers on both sides of the garment. So instead of just one zipper on the side of your skirt, you could do zippers on both sides, so it makes it much easier to get into. So luckily it's turning around. There have been some really great progress made in the last few years even, with companies really paying attention to the disability community, making the design more inclusive. And one of the things I'm going to be working on is to design some things that are specific for a person with disabilities, but then make that same garment for someone who is able-bodied, so that the fashion is more inclusive. It's not like, oh, these are the garments and designs for people with disabilities, and these are the designs for able-bodied people. I would like to see that where there's an overlap. Sometimes it might not be as easy to do it on the lower garment, especially for someone in a wheelchair, but certainly jackets can be cut in a particular way so that they make it easy for someone with a disability to put on and use. Certain considerations in the type of armholes you would put on, different lengths of sleeves, different types of sleeves. that then can overlap and be that same kind of design for someone who may not be in a wheelchair but has a disability and would need specific things happening with the way the shoulders and the sleeves fit on the body. But then it would also work as a fashionable item so that there's a more inclusive aspect to this clothing. So I'm very happy that all of this is really progressing. I would advise anyone who is interested to develop a line, really listen. Listening is the most important thing, to take into consideration and understand the needs of your customer. So thank you, Asia, for having me on your program, Make My Style Accessible. And I look forward to seeing future developments in the line of disability clothing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barbara. It was wonderful to hear you. I'm so very thankful for your time. Thank you for sharing the information with us. I think in past 4 years, companies such as Nike, Target, Tommy Hilfiger have launched shoes and clothing lines for children and adults with special needs. Companies are realizing inclusiveness is really important. And right fashion appeals largely to a sense of style. It's all about your comfort and styling. Thank you so much, everyone. We hope you all gained some knowledge.